Here we go.
Okay, I will do one more thing and I'm ready. Okay, so you are ready?
I'm ready.
Yes. Hello and welcome. This is the Mind of a Man podcast, and my name is William. And today I have a special guest from Netherlands, Hajee Pepping, and I hope I'm not butchering your name. And welcome, Hajee.
Thanks, man, William. Good to be here.
So me and Hajee, we met like 3 years ago in the European Men Gathering, and we have been meeting annually after that. And we have been also part of Maniphesto network in core, and we have become friends through that. And I wanted to hire to be in my podcast for many reasons, but mainly today we are talking about men's work, anger, and Tantra, and what does it mean in Hajee's life and his views on these topics. And Hajee, he's mainly a coach and coaching men and doing leadership training and working with also with companies and other stuff. But you can do the introduction yourself. So who are you and what do you do?
Who are you and what do I do? Well, I'm Hajee. So you pronounced it well, Viami. So Hajee Pepping, living in the Netherlands. You know, together with my wife for almost 23 years now. We got one son, and I think since about 7 years, I'm running my own company. I've been educated as an engineer, so my background is engineering actually. But after 15 years working in that field, I decided to do something different, and then I became a coach and a trainer. Well, the reasons why I switched, we might talk about that later. But what I'm doing right now is I have my own company, Mankracht. Which is something like man force or man strength in English. And yeah, I'm focusing predominantly on men, supporting them to become, let's say, the best versions of themselves. But also the underlying thing is that I feel myself like being an ambassador of, let's say, men's work. So for me, like one of the things that I want to do is to recreate basically typical men domains, which we kind of lost a little bit in let's say modern society as we live in right now. You know, men and women are being put on one pile, which is perfectly okay. At the same time, I think there's also like an importance in coming together with men only, and that's something that that at least in my own life I experience as very beneficial, and that's also what I see as a big antidote to a lot of let's say struggles or issues that men face in the current world. So that's what I'm doing, and apart from doing men's work, I also work, as you said, in companies doing leadership training, personal development. So that's what I'm doing.
So can you describe us what is men's work? What does it mean?
Oh yeah, well, I will answer that on my personal experience, because I think there's a every man will probably answer this question differently. Well, what is men's work? For me, men's work is about what I just said. It's about recreating typical men domains. It's about creating a space where there is men only, and where men are basically coming together, usually for three things. For me, it's like to challenge each other. That's important. So like to challenge each other, but also to listen to each other. So to be there for each other, to support each other. That's the second thing. And the third thing is, I think it's just to be together. And I think this is a bit of the mystical thing with men's work. It's like, you know, you're putting a group of men together that are willing to show up, that are willingly to show up, but also to show themselves. And then suddenly something magical can happen, you know, when there's a group of men together, when there is no, let's call it sexual agenda, because there's no women around, there's no distraction, there can be this pure masculine presence in the room. And I think that is, at least from my own experience, that is something that where I recharge, and where I feel like my self-confidence is growing if I start practicing to relax in this, you know, men only spaces. So that for me is men's work. Yeah. So to have this as a recharger for men, and there is of course an equivalent for women, but you know, that's for women. Yeah?
And so how do you do men's work? So I know, but I want to ask because maybe other people don't know. So do you run
Yeah.
groups,
Yeah.
individual sessions, or bigger events, or how does it work in your life?
Yeah, well, personally, I was invited to become a part of a men's group about 12 years ago, and for me that was like an eye opener. I was invited to this group by a good friend of mine. He said, "Hey, come on, we're gonna kickstart this men's group, and I want you to be part of this." So I was okay, let's do this. So, and how? I didn't know how to do it, and then we're gonna meet every month. We're gonna sit together and we talk about three themes. We're going to talk about our relationship. We're going to talk about our life purpose, and we're going to talk about our sex life. Yeah, these are the three things that we're going to discuss every time. So, and I did that for 2-3 years with this group of guys, and then slowly we started to alter the content a little bit. But basically that's it. And that is also how I do it in my work. Yeah. I do trainings. I have my, let's say, continuous groups. But my trainings predominantly consists of every bi-weekly, so bi-weekly get-togethers. We discuss, I give the guys homework, and you know, they reflect on their homework. They share sometimes stuff that comes up during the training with their wives or with their work or with their children, and then we work with that. So how I do men's work basically is it, the most important thing is the get-togethers, yeah? And that can either be online, as we are talking now via Zoom, or preferably in real life. I mean, that is always the best thing. But then there need to be some sort of continuum in there. Yeah, it's like, okay, every 2 weeks or every month, I'm gonna check in with my guys, and I'm gonna see where I'm at, and I'm gonna see where my brothers are at. That's for me how this vessel, this vehicle, works best. Yeah. But and then, you know, we can talk about structure and content and how you can do this, but there's a huge number of varieties possible there. But the main thing is that you have these fixed moments where you meet together. That's the most important thing.
And how do you get to be qualified to do men's work or lead men's work?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I guess everybody can call himself a men's worker, you know. What I did, as I said, I was inspired by being in this men's group myself. Yeah. I was so inspired by that at a certain point I thought, fuck, I want this other men need to, you know, this can also be so beneficial for other men. And then I was thinking, okay, but how can I make this in such a way that it is accessible for other men as well? So yeah, how do you become a men's worker, William? This is a difficult question, man. So what I did basically is there's this book. It's called No More Mr. Nice Guy. Maybe you heard about it. When I was in my own men's group for about 2-3 years, then this book came to me. I read it somewhere on the internet, and then I started reading it. It's called No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. And this book describes what a nice guy actually is. And this is like a lot of traits that a lot of men in Western society, not only Western society, but all over the world, where they suffer from. And like pleasing, being more, you know, being overly focused on the needs of other people instead of their own. You know, sometimes also being a bit manipulative, etc. Anyway, this archetype, this nice guy archetype, the way Dr. Robert Glover described this, it resonated with me. So I thought like, oh yeah, this is interesting material. I want to work with this. I want to bring this content of this book and also the solutions for nice guy. I want to bring that to Europe. So then I visited Robert Glover in America, in Mexico at the time, to do some training with him and to become a normal Mr. Nice Guy coach. So with that, you know, I came back to the Netherlands, and then I started working with, let's say, the normal Mr. Nice Guy content. And I created, let's say, a men's work framework around that content. And that is how I became, let's say, a men's worker. But I think, you know, every man who is dedicated to, you know, to spend time with men on a regular basis could call himself a men's worker. But I think, you know, with all, let's say, occupations, or how should I say, but with all professions, you know, there are good ones and there are ones that are less good, in my opinion. Yeah. So yeah, I think it has a lot to do with experience.
Okay, I will continue. One more difficult question, because this is more for me personally, because I'm also working in this space, maybe a little bit different than you, but what came, or what happened in you personally that you felt that I'm as such in a good place myself as a man, so I can lead other men to be better men? I mean, that when was the time that you felt that I'm so solid in my masculinity that I can lead other men?
Well, that is difficult. That's really a difficult question. And I'm not sure if I can recall a moment where I actually, you know, had this feeling like, yes, and now I'm ready to lead men. It kind of more happened more organically. Yeah. It's also, especially when it comes to leadership, I always have a bit of, I'm always a bit cautious about people who want to lead. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm always a bit cautious. Yeah. This might sound a bit funny, Viljami, but when I set out my first training, my normal Mr. Nice Guy training back in, I think it was in 2015, 2016, you know, people signed up for my training, you know, and I think that is like the moment where you feel, okay, so it's more about the people coming to you, basically, than you thinking or saying to the world that you are ready, you know. So I believe more in that way, that you know, when you are a leader, you know, people will start following you, and you cannot tell to the world that you are a leader, because you need to kind of you need to earn that. Yeah, does that make sense? You need to earn leadership also a little bit, but there are ways where you can actually, you know, work on your quality as a leader, for sure. But it's not so like okay, and now I'm a leader and now people can follow me. No, it's not that. It's up to the people. It's up to the other people to follow you. Yeah? I think that's more. You need to earn it. I think that's my question. That's my answer.
Yeah, I think that is a really good answer, because I can like kind of sense that when I'm looking at this field of men's work, that there are men who want to just lead from the place of wanting to lead,
Yeah.
and that's not. Um, I think it lacks some energy, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so my next question in my list was, no, what's normal Mr. Nice Guy work? So can we delve a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, sure.
And I see that that's an pandemic around with men in Finland, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, true. So as I said, you know, normal Mr. Nice Guy. I don't have a copy of the book right here, but it's a great way of describing what typical Western men, where they can suffer from. I think there's a lot of characteristics of the nice guy, which, you know, a lot of men, they tick off a few of them. Yeah, there's no exception. Every time when I give an introduction talk about normal Mr. Nice Guy, you know, my core message is there's a bit of a nice guy in every man. Some characteristics of the nice guy. This is greatly being described in this book, but here's a little bit of a summary. So a nice guy, he's a pleaser. Yeah, he's predominantly concerned about the needs of others and not so much about the needs of himself. He considers himself also a bit of a low maintenance type of guy. Yeah, he doesn't require that much maintenance. At least that's what he thinks. The typical paradigm the nice guy operates from is, when I am nice, when I'm, you know, when I'm easygoing with the people around me, then the whole world will think I'm nice, and the whole world will like me. And this is the most important one. All the needs that I have will automatically be met. Yeah. So that's the connection that the typical nice guy makes. Like, by being nice, he thinks that his needs will be met. So so he's basically waiting. Yeah. So I'm being nice. Okay, now I will get sex. Now I will get a raise. Now I will get this. So, but it's not working like that, of course. But that's the typical nice guy, you know, way of thinking, which leads to, as I said before, sometimes also manipulation, because a nice guy certainly at a certain point he realizes that his needs are not being met, you know, in a normal way. So then he starts to manipulate. He can also be, you know, how should I say this? You know, he's afraid of taking risk. Yeah, that's also a typical nice guy thing. You know, not taking any risk, because if you take risk, you know, you can fail. And a nice guy will do everything in order to avoid coming across like a failure, or to coming across like someone who makes mistakes. Yeah, so he's also a bit of Mr. Perfect. So he's hiding his flaws and mistakes. So, and I can go on and on with these traits, but I think you got a bit of the picture right now. So this is the typical nice guy, and this is where a lot of men resonate with Viljami. So that's why I use this, because this is like the advertisement board, like, hey guys, this is the nice guy. And the solution for this is, if you suffer from this, the solution is big time is connecting with other men. It has to do with accepting the masculinity of other men, and by doing that you accept your own masculinity, because usually it is a disconnection from your masculine essence that leads to nice guyism, I would say, or it's an over identification with maybe your feminine side. Yeah. You need to be careful.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I have a couple things that I would like you to tell me, or what you think about. First, just being a nice guy and its relationship for being a feminine man. Can we first talk about that? And what's wrong with that? Because we all do, like, we all have a nice guy inside ourselves. We also have the feminine quality in ourselves, and that's not a bad or good thing. But can you talk about this dynamic?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as I said, I need to be very careful in using these words, and because it's so let's do it carefully. So yes, sometimes you could say that a person who suffers from nice guyism, it depends a little bit on where he's at, but you could say that let's say that this man is being over identified with his feminine, I would say. Yeah, so that in one way or another in his life, he has received a message that when he is in touch with his more feminine side, with his feelings, or, you know, with his softness, or with the focus on harmony, you know, then he will, you know, that he has received a lot of love, appreciation, and approval when he has shown that kind of behavior. It's also like a survival mechanism. Yeah. So let's say a typical nice guy could, for instance, have an abusive alcoholic father. Yeah. So, and an abusive alcoholic father is super unpredictable. So a little boy that needs to cope with such a father is constantly on his toes and has to be in touch with his feminine, because he needs to feel into his father. Is it safe or is it not safe? Yeah. Can I approach him or can I not approach him? Yeah. So he starts developing this let's say the skills of feeling super much. It's, as I said, this is like a survival mechanism. Yeah. So he's constantly scanning if it's okay for him to approach his father. Yeah. So that is just an example where he might have developed this let's say this oversensitivity for the mood of other people. Yeah. And making that like a priority in his life to navigate on, instead of what he really wants himself, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, and there's nothing wrong with this. No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but I sometimes say, like, you know, and being a nice guy, there's also nothing wrong with that. But sometimes I refer to it as a disbalance. When you're so much in your nice guyism, you kind of forget to have developed. You kind of forgot to develop also this part in you that is about taking care of your own needs, taking care of yourself, and putting yourself sometimes on number one. Yeah, because nice guys, they are super skilled in feeling into others. They are super skilled in, you know, taking care of others and being nice, you know, because of course it's okay to be nice to people, you know, but it depends a little bit from which source it originates. Yeah. So usually it's not so much that I want to unlearn nice guyism. it's usually about cultivating something next to it, like, and that is basically taking care of yourself. And in most men that I see in my practice, it is about getting in touch with their masculine essence, which is about well, there's discipline in there, there's determination is in there, there is focus, presence, that kind of qualities. That's usually what they're lacking. And once they start cultivating those more masculine associated traits, then suddenly they become more whole as a human being.
So, and what about that? If we look at the same aspect, that if we are talking about growing as a man or growing to be more adult or more responsible, so what's the relationship with being a Mr. Nice Guy and being a boy or adolescent and not growing up as a man? So this first we're looking at dealing with your own femininity and maybe over femininity and growing towards being a more healthy individual or more whole and owning your masculinity. But what about the other direction, that being because in men's work we do talk a lot about being a boy and then growing to be a man.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if there is a lot of difference in there, but I hear you. So growing, I think when you talk about, you know, the transition from boy to man, that has for me predominantly to do with the word responsibility. It is about taking responsibility for who you are as a man, and you know, you need to nourish your boy inside of you, you know, for sure. I mean, playfulness is super important, I guess, but at the same time, there comes a point where you know, as a man, you need to take responsibility for your own life to start with, but also if you're in a family, for your family. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for your role as a father, for your role as a partner. And that Viliami, that has for me also to do with, I call it more the refining of who you are. Yeah, I think becoming a man is not so much about you know, going to the gym and you know, make big muscles and you know, and that's only one side. Yeah, it has to do with the refining. You know, it has also to do with cultivating the ability, the capability of feeling into your woman, feeling into your children and what they need. You know, so the feminine side is also very important, but as I said, you know, there need to be some kind of balance in there, and that's what I guess that's at least what I aim for in my work with men's work, is to that these guys that they develop this healthy masculine and this healthy feminine, where, you know, to refine that in such a way. And then the only way is up, in my opinion. Yeah, and that has all to do with taking responsibility for your actions, but also responsibility taken for the things that you feel. Yeah.
Okay. So how about anger?
Yeah.
So I have been in your anger workshops, and I think there are lots of what I understand about No More Mr. Nice Guy work is firstly connecting with your feeling of anger and rage, and through that other things. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So let's start with the nice guy again. I think a typical nice guy, some of the guys see it even as a virtue, as something good, that they are never angry. You know? And that's awkward, yeah? Because anger is there. And it doesn't make any sense to try to deny it. It's there. It is part of our emotional spectrum that we have sometimes angry, frustrating, or you know, even hatred can be sometimes in there. Yeah, these are the feelings that we sometimes have. Now, as I just said, I think it is about trying to refine these feelings of anger. So what can you do with anger? So a lot of nice guys have suppressed their anger. A lot of men are suppressing their anger because it's, you know, they think they come across as harsh, or they come across as aggressive when they show a bit of their anger. And so a lot of men that I meet in my practice, they have decided not to become angry anymore. You know? The result is that they cut themselves off from not only their anger, but also from their from an essential life energy. Yeah, because anger is like, it's like a gateway to your life energy. And by denying that you have this anger energy and not willing to tap into that, you cut yourself off from a life force. So that's for me is the real problem. So that's also why I use anger as one of the, let's say, main topics in my work to build a healthy relationship with your anger. Yeah. So I'm not here to say that people or that men should become more angry. No, for me it's more like, hey, let's see if we can, first of all, celebrate the fact that you can be in contact with your anger, because sometimes that's even like a first bridge to be walked by a man, to actually allow themselves to step into their rage, to step into their anger, without being judged about this. Yeah. So in my work, I do a lot of, I guide men into their anger, and then, we applaud for it. Yeah. As a celebration, like, great, man, great to see this part of you. Yeah. This is the type of energy that we like to see in you. Yeah. And it's not that we want you to put this energy into life, but it's just like it builds a lot of trust, at least from my side, when I see men being connected with their anger, because then I trust them. So for me, that's essential. And then once they're tapped into their anger, when they allow it again to be there, only then we can talk and work with, okay, how can you actually manifest this bulk of energy that anger is? How can you actually manifest this in your life in a way that it is constructive, that you can actually do something, let's say, nice with it, instead of being over aggressive or being on the suppressing side. Yeah. So then yeah, so the way out there is for me the word assertiveness. Yeah. So I think assertiveness is like the green healthy way of dealing with your anger. So.
And I will add the picture of you and me doing anger work into this podcast, or the start picture. And that was a really epic picture taken from a couple of years ago, I think. Hajee's anger work, and for me personally, doing men's work. Well, let's start with this. I was first really deep into yoga and lots of new age stuff, and kind of this hippie realm, which was really sensitive about sensing and being in peace with yourself and stuff, and which was really good. There's lots of good things into that, but it lacked completely the relationship, finding a relationship with your anger or dealing with that. And that has been a really profound thing for me in men's work, finding that relationship with my anger, and through that contact with life energy, like you said. So I think that's one of the most vital most vital things in men's work, finding that positive place for anger, and through that assertiveness. But before we go to the assertiveness part, I would like to ask you about this anger, and anger towards men and anger towards women. And that's quite a hard place to, and we have to be really careful what we talk. But I think we have to make a difference there, because it's really different to be angry at other men and be angry to women. So can you a little bit talk about that?
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I'm curious, Viljami. So in what sense do you, I mean, I can, in what sense do you think there is a difference between anger towards men and towards women? I mean, is this from your own personal life that or do you see this also with other men?
I think it's both, but for me, first of all, it's finding a, well, I have done men's work and this anger exercises with other men, and they have been so good, and I have enjoyed them so much. And after that, it has been really good, and it involved threat of physical violence, which is a fact. But of course, it's an exercise. We didn't do it, but it's a fact. It involved really deep physicality, wrestling, shouting, pushing, not in ways that I'm hurting somebody, maybe just a little bit, but to access that place, that's a possibility. And for me, that has been let's say, life-changing. And after become a father, it has been a really life-changing. Well, I remember when I was doing one men's work event, and I don't remember what was the exercise, but after that we shared something, and I said that this was my first time in my life that I touched rage in me. And I just became a father, and the rage was about that if somebody tries to hurt my child, I was in a place that I will kill someone. And it was a fact. It wasn't even like a place that I can sense that this is a possibility. It was just a fucking fact that if somebody tries to hurt my child, I will kill them, no questions asked. And that has been really like one of the pillars of my fatherhood, that sense of really deep rage. Okay, so that was really good. But then then I was in this other workshop with anger, and there was lots of women there, and there was point of it was to shout at each other, to kind of express your anger towards other people, not touch but just shout. And I remember when I was shouting to women, they were so scared, because I'm a quite big guy, and maybe a little bit dangerous as well. But I have the danger on control. I haven't ever done anything bad to other women physically. This is like but I realized that lots of those women, they didn't handle my rage at all, that I was shouting at them and they were like really afraid. And it's good thing that they are afraid, but there's definitely a difference there. And because I think it's a cultural difference, and also with the history that lots of men have hurt women. But and for my personal last thing that I said is like, in my relationship with my wife, if with my best friend, it's so easy to be angry at her, and we can wrestle and we can hit each other if we disagree sometimes, and it goes to the playfulness, and sometimes it hurts. But with my wife, it's not the same. That there are different rules with expressing anger, and maybe that's my place, that I have a more difficulty to be angry to my wife than with other men or my son or this. So here, my question comes from that.
Yeah, all right, I get it, and I resonate with you. Yeah, so so I think what you describe here is actually a good thing. That's why what I also say is like in a safe space with men only, it is a good place to start cultivating your relation with your anger, because it's safe. Usually the other men are less intimidated by you than there would be women, as you just described. Yeah, so that makes total sense. And I think, Viljami, I think dealing with your anger and giving that a place, this is something that we men need to learn from each other. Ideally, we would have learned from our fathers how we should deal with our anger, as women learn from their mother how to deal with their period. Yeah. This is because this typical something which has to do with let's say the female body, and that's not up to us men to explain that. So I think, the how to deal with your anger is something that we should learn from our fathers, because this is like a typical thing, as you just said. If a man becomes really angry and get into this fire and get into this energy, then it's can be really threatening. Yeah, and this is, especially in your relationship, this is not really contributing to the trust if you show a lot of this energy in your relationship. At least if I would imagine that I would rage or scream to my wife every now and then, as I said, that would not contribute to the, let's say, to the harmony or to the relationship. I'm not saying that I'm never angry at my wife or in the presence of my wife, of course, but I think it's a good way to ventilate your angry feelings, your irritation and your frustrations first with your male friends. Yeah, so that's what I do, because that usually helps also to get the heat off. Yeah. So when I am in an argument with my wife, I usually call my buddy first and I say, hey man, this is what's up. You know, what do you think of it? Oh, and then I can let out some of my anger or stuff that I have towards my wife. And then the first shot, I do it with my buddy, and only then I take it to my wife. And of course, there can still be a bit of anger there, but and which is sometimes okay to show my wife that I'm not okay with a certain situation. But you know, then at least the heat is off. And I think that's like a healthy way to deal with this. And that's what I also call call it anger mastery. It is like, you know, allowing yourself also to feel everything that needs to be felt. And I think the maturity in there is like, you know, if you feel like you are angry on your kid, for instance, which is also important, first, you know, deal with that anger yourself or with a friend or even with your wife, and only then, you know, confront your kid with it, that your son or your daughter is not receiving the, you know, the unfiltered anger that there can be, but that you know, take your responsibility and first let off some of that steam somewhere else. Can also be in the gym or in the kickbox ring or whatever you do, but yeah, I think it's important to do that. And I think, you know, just to answer your questions, you don't want to be angry with your wife. You know, that's one of my teachers said it to me, you know, if you get angry with your wife, you lost it. Yeah. So I think that's also like the responsibility that you have as a man in a relationship, like, you know, because you are physically stronger. Yeah. So when you're angry, you know, you are a threat. Yeah. And you need to be aware of that, and you need to take responsibility for that. And you need to show your woman, yeah, that you're in control of your anger, and that the anger is not in control of you. And that's the practice.
Yeah. And maybe what I share something what my wife said about this, because when I showed her the picture where I was like fuming, the first thing what she said, that like, she was like, oh, I have never met that guy. So, and it was really good, because it's kind of that I didn't express that in my relationship, which was really good, that I'm somewhat in control with that.
Yeah.
But of course, for me, my problem is my nice guyness is in my relationship. So where to find the balance of not raging or expressing your anger destructively, and finding a place where you can use that energy to create a healthy way of saying no, and defining your boundaries and your needs, and kind of this place. And it's kind of hard to navigate that place.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same counts for me, Filiami, and that is always the difficult thing. Saying something uncomfortable to your wife, knowing that she might get upset about this is like, yeah, but I think that is I've spoken to a lot of women, but they all prefer to have a guy that tells the truth instead of, you know, using sugarcoating or not telling the whole truth. Yeah. So it's up to us, because the women want the truth, you know, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of men still are thinking that they are afraid of hurting their woman, yeah, by saying something or by not telling something. But I think most women, you know, they want to know the truth, even if it will hurt them. Yeah.
So should you tell everything to your wife?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. No, I think it's super healthy to have. I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm a bit advocate of transparency. And radical honesty, but a lot of people confuse this with you know, sharing all secrets with each other. I mean, that's something really different. That's something else. Yeah. No, I have some stuff that my wife doesn't know about me, and she probably has also stuff that she discusses with her friends, and that I'm not aware of. Yeah. And I think that's also healthy. Yeah.
But I was more pointing into this kind of age-old question of women asking that, do I look fat in this dress?
Yeah.
Type of deal. Not in that sense that I mean generally, that you are advocate for radical honesty and transparency, which I respect and I agree with 100%. but at the same time, there are things that you shouldn't say that pops into your mind.
That's completely sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where do you find the balance with that?
Yeah.
Because in the radical honesty workshops, you say whatever comes to your mind, even if it's so fucking mean and degrading and hurtful. Also, maybe just find the place that you can do it. But in a relationship, I don't think that's useful or healthy. So what's the balance between that, with the transparency and kind of the self-control on what should you say?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few criteria that at least I try to maintain or to uphold here. It is, first of all, would it serve if I would tell it? Yeah, would it serve? Would it serve her? Would it serve me? So that's one of the main criteria that I use. Yeah, because of course I also have thoughts that are could be considered as abusive or very hurtful. Yeah, but that's just thoughts. Everybody has thoughts, and as I said, I think it's important to tap into yourself. Like, hey, this is something I notice. Would it really be serving if I would say this? And the other thing is, so that's one criteria, and the other criteria is when it comes to myself, is like, can I still look at myself in the mirror when I say this, or vice versa? Can I still look at myself in the mirror when I am not saying this? Yeah. So this has to do with my own integrity. Yeah. And that is like a gut feeling. Yeah. So I'll know. Yeah. When I should have said something, or I know when I should not have said it. Yeah. So this is like the two things, the criteria that I use. So will it serve? Will it help? For instance, will it support my wife in her process? And is it something that is really eating on me when I don't say it? Is it questioning my own integrity when I say something? Yes or no? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think these are really good guidelines on
Yeah.
how to navigate. And of
Yeah.
course, there's no right way to do it, but I can kind of sense a dichotomy there in myself when I'm with my wife, and to find a place where to be assertive and say something which I know is hurtful.
Yeah.
And not to be in the place where I'm not malevolent or trying to hurt her. And it's a really, really fine line where it is.
Yeah, it is. And I think, Yami, the trick is, as I said in the beginning, take risk there. Yeah, sometimes you need to take risk, and then you say something which is maybe a bit too strong or too hurtful. And they say, okay, sorry, but as I said, if you trust your gut, if you're not saying something out of blame, if you trust your gut, if you only say the stuff from a lovingly space, yeah, like, hey, I want to support you, yeah, and that's why I'm saying this, then usually the message is being received well, although it may hurt, but it's received well. Then the message is received and not so the messenger. If that makes sense. As I said, it's important that you, yeah.
Okay, good. So you mentioned assertiveness, and this is one thing that I have personally been in a, let's say, journey to find, and it's getting better every day, but finding this place of channeling your anger, rage to assertiveness. What happens there? You talk about mastering your anger and turning it to assertiveness. Can you talk about that? Like, first we have to conduct the energy, find it, express it, but then it starts to be refined to assertiveness. What happens there?
Yeah. So this, of course, well, in a nutshell, a lot of people have stored anger. Yeah, they have kept the anger with them, haven't expressed what they really thought about situations, and as a result, I draw a picture usually about the anger bucket. Yeah, so that all the stuff that is being suppressed is being stored in the anger bucket. Now, I think there's a few ways how you can, let's say, empty this bucket. Yeah. So I think any form of sports where you do a lot of sweat, you know, which is a good way to release some of this stored emotions. But also releasing it more in a conscious way by doing some anger work is a way of releasing some of this stored anger. Yeah? It can create a lot of freedom in your system, as you experience yourself as well. It creates freedom, rest, and peace of mind. So that's a good thing. That is also for me like you need to do this before you can even start working with your anger in an assertive way, because it's very difficult when you feel sudden rage coming up to channel that into assertiveness. Yeah, when you're getting really angry or when you get into rage, it's already too late. Yeah, then it's too late. Assertiveness is more about, as soon as you notice something that you dislike, as soon as you notice something that you think should be mentioned, yeah, you do it right in the moment. Yeah, that is being assertive. That is, for instance, when someone doesn't close the door while you have the agreement that you should close the door. Yeah, you address it immediately instead of waiting 10 times before you're going to say, because then you probably are fully charged with the fact that this person is not closing the door every time, if that makes sense. Huh? So it is about speaking your truth in the moment. So it is, the practice is, as soon as you notice something, bam, you're going to say it. That is practicing assertiveness, and also, you know, to a certain extent, practicing radical honesty. So by expressing your little irritations, by expressing your little inconvenient truths in the moment, yeah, you avoid filling up your bucket. Yeah. So it is a way of staying clean with your environment. It is a way of staying clean with your own emotions by addressing the stuff immediately. So that's what I try to do myself in my life, and this is also what I try to, how do you call it, to provoke the men that I work with to do also. To do that also in relation to me. Sometimes I sense that they have a bit of a judgment towards me because I said something, and then say it, you know, what don't you like about what I just said, you know, and then they say it, and then we have something to work with, and then, you know, they experience that it's suddenly clean again. Yeah.
And I can tell my experience on this topic with you, because last year I fell asleep in Hajee's workshop because I was fucking tired. There was 100 guys listening Hajee talking about anger or whatever, and I fell asleep. And Hajee confronted me because he was annoyed for me sleeping in the front row. Like, of course, that's a little bit asshole move from my part, but it was really good, because I didn't feel like disrespected by Hajee, that he threw a pen at me and said, "William, don't sleep at my lecture." He was angry, and he said it. And I was a little bit ashamed, of course, sorry that my friend, that I wasn't like trying to disturb your thing, but it kind of, I felt that in the sense that other men, that you got their respect when you said it. And it wasn't like this mean thing that you did, but you were assertive, and it was annoying you, and you said it.
Yeah.
And it was really good. And I think that was really not for that it was a good workshop, but I think that was best part of that. For you were showing an example how to do it.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man, for sharing. And I recall that moment, and there was no thought. It was just doing it, you know, like yeah, Anyway, yeah. But that is good stuff, you know. And usually people that slowly transist, or how do you call it, make a transition towards a more assertive lifestyle, they are being considered a bit more, you know, a bit more irritating, sometimes being perceived as a bit more irritating. And then I think that's okay. Yeah? That's okay. Yeah? Be a bit more out there, be a bit more outspoken. Yeah.
And for me personally, I have found a place when with my close friends that I'm really like outspoken, that I will say what I think, but still I have a little bit, maybe it's because of my work that I have to be really professional a lot of times to say what I think. So I'm finding this balance there, and we'll see what happens with that, because I can sense really sense that I have this, I call it inner asshole in me, that have to be really alert with that guy, because he sometimes says like really ugly things, and
Uh,
there's a place for that, but it's not all the time.
no.
So
Yeah, that makes sense. And I like what you said about, you know, in your professional life, you have to honor, you cannot say everything that comes up in your mind, you know. So these are specifically realms, you know, professional lives, or you know, people that you meet in your work. You know, we have to suppress sometimes the things that we actually want to say, but we can't because of the professional setting. So, and that's also important, why important to create space in your life where you can actually release some of your stored anger, either being with sports or doing a conscious anger work, because there's a lot of places still where we need to suppress stuff. Yeah. So yeah, just be aware of it, I would say. Yeah.
yeah, good. So we have been tapping in a little bit in the aggressiveness, and but we didn't talk so much about passive aggressiveness.
Yeah. No.
I think that was my problem first, that I started doing. That was the passive aggressive things to do. So can
Yeah.
you talk about that, because I think that's also really big part of that whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Sure. Well, I just described to you, you know, if you store your anger too much, you know, it becomes stored in the bucket, and you know, when the bucket is getting full and full and full, sometimes there's this last drip of something saying something, and then boom, you have your destructive aggression outburst, your tantrum. But what happens before is that the pressure is increasing in the bucket, and then the bucket starts leaking. Yeah, you start leaking your anger elsewhere. So that's basically, for me, also the definition of passive aggressiveness. It's basically anger. Um, it's basically anger that should have been addressed somewhere else, but it is being addressed in a place where it doesn't belong. And I think, for instance, let's say gossiping is a perfect example of that. Yeah. So you're talking bad about someone else who's not there. Well, actually, you should talk about this stuff that you think is bad about this person with the person itself, but instead you're leaking your anger somewhere else, and the other one cannot even defend himself. Yeah. So this is like really a great example of passive aggressiveness. Yeah. So it's leaking your anger elsewhere. And there's multiple ways how people leak their anger. And this is for yourself. Like, let's say you can catch yourself when you're doing it and think, oh fuck, what am I doing here actually? You know, especially with gossiping. But there's multiple ways. I mean, all forms of addictions are also a form of of of, of passive aggressiveness. It's basically when you do comfort food, when you do Facebook, when you do smoke a joint, when you drink alcohol, or you smoke a cigarette, or even stronger, drugs. It is about not engaging with the thing in life that wants to be engaged with. It is a form of postponing, yeah, by using comfort food, for instance. And postponing in itself is also a form of passive aggressiveness. I'll do my text tomorrow. Oh, I'll do this difficult phone call with my father tomorrow. Or, you know, this is also a way where you actually push forward the discomfort that wants to be engaged with. So so the passive aggressiveness is a way, as I said, where people leak their anger, and there's a lot of forms of passive aggressiveness. I can share a few. I mean, turning to a more cynical lifestyle, yeah, where everything is the fault of the government. You know, this is you know, sometimes a cynical remark can be very funny. I mean, a lot of comedians they use cynicism as their, you know, this is like also humor. Yeah. At the same time, sometimes you come across people that have this cynical lifestyle attitude. Yeah, and I'm not sure if that is so healthy. That is also a form of passive aggressiveness. Yeah. And as I said, procrastination is also a biggie. But also being inconvenient, being, how should I say it, being being deliberately inconvenient to other people. Yeah, so it's about sabotaging other people sometimes a bit. You can maybe you can recognize that you. I know, for instance, this is an example that I'm using. Sometimes how should I say? I hate it. I hate the sound of the vacuum cleaner. Yeah, and sometimes my wife she does it, and it's not because and it's like. I'm not saying that she's passive aggressive to me, but that's like a great example how she could be passive aggressive to me. Yeah, like doing vacuum cleaning while I'm at home and I'm working and knowing that I'm hating it. Yeah, so these are ways where you can actually leak your anger. Yeah, being late is also one. So I know I'm late 5 minutes. I will wait for me. Yeah, it's also about not respecting the other people. Yeah, so there's probably something you need to say to that, or maybe you don't want to go there. Yeah, if you're being late, maybe there's something. Maybe so you need to be really honest with yourself. Why are you being late all the time? Yeah.
And we of course have to remember that the opposite to this is overly aggressiveness, and that's a whole different topic. And I don't want to talk about that because it's maybe more self-evident what happens when you are overly aggressive or overly angry.
Yeah.
And I think, of course, there's a whole different field on how to deal with that. But I would say that mostly the problem with men I encounter, it's the passive aggressiveness.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about assertiveness and changing or channeling this anger or life force to assertiveness.
Mm-hmm.
What about creativity? Because for me personally, I have let's say I'm a thinker, which is it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because and I think a lot. Like my mind is rising all the time, and also I'm feeding it and reading every day, like philosophy and theology and everything, because I feel it's really my passion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this passive aggressive element here that it doesn't completely transfer to creating something new. So I would like you to talk about a little bit this turning your life energy, anger to creation, to creating something instead of like thinking about it. Because well, actually, when we are doing men's work, there's at least in Europe, lots of smart men there in the European men gathering. I was just thinking about it last time. Like these are doctors and professors and inventors and like so much smart guys there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much talk. There's so much talk about philosophy and stuff. And sometimes I'm just feeling I want to go and well, maybe I will tell about this. Last year, I was in the eating in the table, and there was this really smart younger guy there talking about Lacan and mimetic theory from I don't know who was it. No one anyway. Mimetic theory and really smart.
Desire.
Mimetic desire and talking about this. And I just said to him that I think it's really good ideas and really beautiful. But if I slap you in the face right now, you wouldn't care about this at all. And I wasn't saying that I want to slap him. Maybe I was a little bit wanting to slap him, maybe, but I mean, it was so much in his head that it wasn't translating to creating something new.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying. So this is about what comes to mind when you raise this question, Thiami, it's about embodiment. Huh? So to what extent are you living the talk? And well, the example that you just gave about me throwing a pencil at you in the workshop because you were falling asleep, that is for me like an example of embodiment. Like, hey, I was not. There was a little irritation because there was a guy sleeping in my workshop, and then you just act immediately. Yeah, that is without thinking. That was without thinking, and I think I can come up with more of these examples from my life where you basically you act upon an irritation immediately. And I think that's where you kind of can show that you master it. And but it is difficult. I mean, because it's so tempting to talk and overthink stuff and to overtalk stuff. But I think the quality is in the action. Yeah. And that is what I try to do. Now, I'm trying to find another. Try to find another example, but it is simple things for Jan, For instance, recently I had a flat tire with my car. So this is like a perfect thing. The first thing, of course, is irritation, frustration, is anger. Like, fuck, my whole schedule is in the way. But, what do you do next? Of course, there is the room for this anger. But the next thing is you put this energy, you put this in motion in order to fix it. Yeah, I'm going to call the garage. I'm going to call, I'm going to arrange it. I need to have another car and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So then you put your energy to fix it. Yeah. So that's one example. Also, I'm rebuilding my house right now. Yeah. So there's all these little tasks that I need to do, like hanging up a lamp, painting the wall, and there's always frustration and irritation there as well, because things is always different than you anticipate. But then also, then you channelize it to something constructive, like, okay, this is not working. Take a deep breath. All right. How am I going to fix this? And you can use this energy which is there then to turn it around. So, that is about embodiment. Embodiment is really about doing. There's only one way you can get embodied about stuff, and that's by doing it. You cannot think. There's also a lot of people, they think that they can think their way out of their problems, but usually it's not. You cannot think yourself out of your problems. This is also like a how do you call it? Like a strategy. Yeah, trying to overthink a situation, because you might have this final thought where you find the solution of your problem. Yeah. Which will never be so. The solution out of a problem is usually you doing something, asking for help. Usually is asking for help, or at least in my case, it's usually reaching out to someone else, and that is how you slowly get embodied. Yeah, as I said, you will not think away your problem.
Yeah, I like this embodiment. So what I wrote down is what is embodied philosophy? Like, yeah. Well, Robert Clover had this idea about Mr. Nice Guys, and he wrote the book about it.
Yeah,
and that's embodiment, still kind of turning that philosophy or idea to book, mm-hmm. and then training, and then you did the training and you embodied it and started doing that.
Yeah.
So I maybe that this is the thing, that how to embody these high ideas in your mind. Maybe that's the question for the whole humanity, that
yeah,
how can you do that? And of course, one way maybe is that you live your life fully and try to embody these things that we are talking all the time, not in a workshop or not in training, but all the time, that
exactly
living, embodying it fully. So that's maybe a task for a lifetime, of course.
Yeah, it is, Fliami. And I think in that, one of my teachers always said to me, like, he said, yeah, Hajee, you can read the book, and that's fine. You can get inspired by a book, but after reading a book, you cannot give a workshop in that field. First you need to live that shit for 2 years, and then you can only start giving a workshop about this. You need to, and that makes total sense. And I do think there's a lot of people out there that read a book and they think they can, give a workshop about this. But you need to know all the ins and the outs. You need to explore this field of possibilities that are there before you can actually, think about, giving this knowledge or this experience to some other people. Yeah. So I must say, Vlijami, I'm becoming more and more, what's the word? Nederig, humble, you know? Yeah, I think humble is really good to practice when you start about talking about embodiment. Yeah. And this also starts, you know, I get back to one of the first questions of this interview, Vlijami, is about, you know, people will come to you, you know, when you have something to offer. Yeah, what is of real value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that, I have another, I don't know, line of questions for you. We talked about lots of men's work, no Mr. Nice Guy, and then I would like to talk to you about this other thing, and it's Tantra and relationships.
Oh yeah.
And if we start with that, can you share a little bit your story with you? How did you end up doing Tantra? What is Tantra? What is TNT and stuff?
Oh yeah, that's a lot of questions. Yeah. Well, I shared with you guys. I'm in a relationship 23 years right now. We have a son who is almost 13 right now. At the time when our son was around 2 years old, 3 years old, then my relationship, we were in a crisis. There was a lot of attention going to our son. There was hardly any sexuality in our relationship anymore. It was there was no spark anymore. Yeah, it was a bit dry, and it was very functional. We ended up like a brother and a sister. Yeah, so we didn't hate each other, but yeah, there was also not a lot of attraction. So I was really at the point of stopping the relationship at the time. But I'm very happy that I did not do it that. So we tried to find some solutions. We tried to work on it. We went to a relationship therapist. That was not a big success. But okay, you know, at least we were working on it. And then we were invited by a few friends of us to, hey, maybe you guys should join a Tantra training. And I was very skeptical in the beginning. I was, oh no, you know. So I read some stuff on the internet about this specific Tantra school, and it's about, you know, giving up your peak orgasm in order to enhance your sex life. I was like, no fucking way, I'm not gonna. You know, that was the one thing of joy that I still had, you know, in my life. I was not willingly to give that up. That was, let's say, my first thought, you know, when I was introduced to the idea of non-coming. But then my wife went to an introduction evening on her own to this of this Tantra trainer, and then she came home enthusiastically, and I was like, okay. So I slowly let this idea in, and then one point we said like, okay, fuck it, let's do it. We're just gonna do it. There was like a level 1 and a level 2 we could do. We said, okay, we're gonna do level 1, and if it's okay, we're gonna do level 2. We arranged some babysitting for our son at the time, and then we dived into this Tantra training. And yeah, man, there we found basically the issue that was going on in our relationship. That was well explained in that training. The teacher in the new Tantra, he talked about the polarity. Yeah, so the polarity was gone between me and my wife, meaning I kind of sucked in my masculinity, and she kind of sucked in her femininity. So we were like yeah, there was no, let's say, there was no current streaming from one to the other. It was very dry. So what we learned there is how to enhance the polarity again in a relationship that basically dried up. Yeah, so it was really dry. So meaning, you know, I started working more on my masculine traits, my wife starting to work more on her, let's say, feminine traits. And we did active practices in order to create some polarity back in our relationship again. And that was a lot of fun, also tough. And we did this all together with practicing the non-coming practice. Yeah, so staying away from the peak orgasm. also in order to create the polarity again, because you can imagine if you give up your peak orgasm, if there's not, let's say, the end shot, then you kind of you kind of maintain the tension that you build up during the sex if you don't have this crescendo of your semen, of your letting out your semen. Then you basically you keep the tension, and that has helped greatly to restore the polarity in our relationship again. Not only the non-coming, but also other practices that we've done. For instance, one example, some Sundays we said like, okay, I said to my wife, okay, today I'm gonna decide everything we're gonna do. Yeah. So for her, it was the practice to follow me, and for me, it was the practice to think for myself, but also think for her. Yeah. Like to feel into her, what she would actually need, what she would like, you know, and not that she would just follow me like a dog, but you know, it should also be like a nice day together. Yeah. So it was really a practice for me to every time feel into her, what she would need or what she would like, and then try to use that information also in the direction that I would give to the day. And that has helped greatly, man, to create some juice again in our relationship. Yeah. So that's the story. That's the story. Yeah.
And I'll have to be a little bit devil's advocate here for you went to the TNT, the new Tantra.
Yeah.
And lots of European men who are in the European men's work have gone into that same school. I haven't. I have heard stories, good ones, and also some little bit disturbing stories as well. So a little bit talk about that. That of course in every place there are good and bad things. So what's your experience with this?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So there's good stories, there's bad stories. There's controversial around the new Tantra. Well, I can only talk, of course, from my own personal experience. Yeah, it is confronting. Yeah, the new Tantra still at the time, it was Alex Fartman giving the teachings. And as I said, yeah, it was quite controversial the way he did it. Not controversial, what's the right word? It was confronting. Yeah, so there was no sugarcoating at all. Yeah. So in comparison to other Tantra schools, you know, where there's a lot of love and harmony and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So this was a super confrontational, which is not for everybody. Yeah. And I realized that also when I was there as a participant. It's like, oh yeah, so for some people this works. I mean, for me and my wife, it was perfect. You know, this was exactly what we needed, this kick in the butt to start working on ourselves. But for other people, yeah, this was quite tough. Yeah. And in backside, they would talk bad about their experience, which I can imagine. Yeah. But yeah, because of the directness of the teachings in there. Yeah.
And is the school still running?
Yeah, yeah. But now Alex Fartman is not doing the workshops anymore. Alex Fartman has taught some of his students the stuff that he's been doing, and now the trainings are being provided by former students, so to speak. Yeah, so there's basically new teachers there. I've been doing the men's work, the men's retreat 2 times, also within TNT. And I'm planning, I need to be very careful by saying this, but it would be great to do another men's workshop within TNT next year. I'm discussing this with the current TNT team to do another men's workshop next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and one last question before we move on to this. So I haven't ever met Alex Wartman, and I don't know anything about him, but only thing that came across when I was Googling him. So he changed genders or what?
No, yeah, no, he doesn't. I think he still has a cock. No, but he goes through life as Alexa Fartman. Yeah. So yeah, he has embraced his feminine fully, and is, you know, and he's doing that. But at the time in the workshops, he was already switching between being in his masculine and being in his more feminine side. Yeah. So, but he hasn't done any operation, at least not on his cock, as far as I know. Yeah.
Okay.
But he's living the talk, eh? But he's living. How do you call it? Yeah, he's walking the talk. You know, he's always one of his biggest teachings was always like also for men to embrace their sexual feminine as well. Yeah, in order to become a better lover as a man himself. Yeah, if you know how it is to be on the receiving side, if you know literally how it is to be fucked, yeah, how vulnerable that actually is, you know, to be on the receiving side, then only then you will know how to carefully but properly fuck another woman, because you've been on the other side. So yeah, that was one of the main things that I got from TNT. Yeah.
So how does it work then that you started, you are married still,
Yeah,
and and there's, well, let's first say there are different tantra schools and different way of looking at tantra. So we are now only talking about Haye's way, and Haye does it with her wife. So these are not like general ways
no,
of doing this.
no.
Yeah. So so you said that first you were married and then you went to this tantra school, and some tantra schools, they in there they practice some sort of it wasn't a polyamory but like open relationships. So what's your road to that?
Yeah, all right. Well, that's a good thing, because before we started with TNT, we were monogamous. Yeah, so we were in a relationship for I guess 12 years. We only had sex with each other, and that was it. Then within the community of the new tantra, we were introduced to, hey, but you can also have, you know, practice dates, or, you know, have a sexual experiences with other people. And of course this was super exciting. Jealousy was there, of course, like, oh fuck, you know, what if another guy can fuck my woman better than I can, and all mind fucks. And yeah, this has been a big thing for Yami in our relationship. So we decided, and this is only because we had like a solid 12-year monogamous base. Yeah, so that has created a lot of trust already. Yeah, so only, and I would say that was like the that was basically the reason why we both dared to start opening up our relationship. Yeah, and we did this step by step. And this is where I come back to the word transparency. This is where transparency applies. Yeah, so no secret dates, no, everything was always being done and still being done with transparency. Yeah, she knows everything that I've done, and I know everything that she has done. Yeah, in the sexual realm. Yeah, that, because yeah, that's like yeah, super important to actually make it work. And to finish this off, you used the word polyamory. I don't want a polyamorous relationship. Man, I think one woman is enough. You know, I'm not interested in a relationship with another woman. Yeah, but sexually, yeah, I think it's interesting to have, you know, sex with other women every now and then. Same for my wife. You know, she's not interested. At least I think she's not interested in having a relationship with another man. You know, but, you know, having a sexual experience with another guy with another flavor, you know, that is something that she sometimes likes to do. Well, of course, you know, I totally get that. So that's completely fine. And that makes it also a bit safer, because it's only about the sex. That's at least the way we give form and shape to having an open relationship. It is only sexual. Last thing about is, when I have, for instance, a date with another woman in my life, then I don't do, you know, after that, you know, 4 or 5 weeks, I hardly have any contact with her, just to kill any, call it romantic dreaming, that might, or, you know, that might happen after having intimacy with someone else. Yeah? Because I want to honor
So
my primary relationship. Yeah.
so how do you work that? Well, I've been following Jordan Peterson for
Oh,
quite a long time, and he talks about his, well, conservative views on the topic.
yeah.
And he says that he thinks that you cannot separate sex and love, and definitely you have managed to do it somehow. So can you talk about that? And like, Yeah, I understand that you have to kill the romantic, like fantasizing after that. But can you talk about this?
Yeah. And I think Jordan Peterson is to a certain extent right, you know. If I have a date with another woman, you know, and if I go fully in, then I love her. You know, then I share some of my love with another woman. Yeah, in that moment. But that is something else, something different than starting a relationship with a person. Yeah, that is something else than wanting to be all the time with her. Yeah? That is for me a different. That is a different play. So that is that. Yeah, I think that is for me the difference. With my wife, I'm in a relationship, meaning that I sleep next to her, that I wake up next to her, that I share, that we have a shared household. We bought a house together. We have a son together. We have to give form and shape to our parenthood. So, you know, there's a lot more that I have to do with her. Yeah. And I love her. Yeah. And we, as I said, we are together, and I see our relationship also as a container for mutual growth. Yeah. So we both grow from this. So I have to speak up to my wife sometimes, you know. I have to be assertive to my wife. She is sometimes assertive to me. She points out flaws and mistakes that she sees in my behavior. So this is a completely different ball game, in comparison to having a date with another woman, which I love in the moment, you know, because it's great to share love with another person, but it's not relationship material, if that makes sense. For me, there's a big difference between having a relation. I can love, let's say, I can share my love with multiple persons, but I do not want to have a relationship with multiple persons, or like a primary dedicated relationship.
Yeah, yeah. So do you have to like consciously avoid, let's catching feelings with those other women, or how does it work? That
Yeah.
do they have to be kind of like an women that you don't usually hang out with, or they are just like, how does it work?
It's also sometimes it's women that I know very well. It's because the thing is, as I said, it's about killing the romantic dream. If I have a date with a person, of course I have thoughts like, oh, this is amazing. It would be great, you know, to hang out a bit longer with this woman. Yeah, of course I have those thoughts, but it's also they're also thoughts created, you know, by the experience that I have with this woman in the moment. But I'm always very clear about, you know, having dates with other women. And I say, hey, we're going to have a date right now, and I'm here completely fully with you right now. And let's do this practice. Let's do what we want to do. Let's do what, you know, what will come through us in such a date. But after that, you know, it's like, what helps me to get back into my primary relationship again is about, as I said, it's not having contact with that woman for, let's say, 5 or 6 weeks. Of course, we send a message like, it was great, yeah, we're great, till next time, and then, you know, but some guys that I see in the field, they also like they do this endless texting afterwards, and you know, and that is what I say, or sometimes calling or making a new appointment or having a cup of coffee, and that is what I say, that is like feeding the romantic dream. Yeah, then you kind of, you know, you start feeding it, and then it becomes, let's say, a bit dangerous, because then it can become a threat for your primary relationship. Yeah, so for me, as I said, honoring my primary relationship is about not feeding potential romantic dreams with other women.
So does that mean that the woman who you go date with, they are in the same, let's say, mindset already?
Oh, it's my
That they
responsibility. Yeah, but it's also my responsibility to make them in that same mindset. And if I sense that they are not in that mindset, then I don't ask these women for a date. Yeah.
okay. Okay, so yeah, just not from the TNT school, but they can be whoever.
Yeah, they can be for whoever. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So how about this jealousy thing you mentioned? You started opening up your relationship, and these feelings of jealousy came up to you.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that, or with how did you two?
This yeah. Well, this is by far the most challenging thing. It was, at least for me, and it sometimes can still be. And it's not so much the jealousy in itself as it is, let's say, the fear for becoming jealous. So, and this is also a nice tantric aspect, you know, because Tantra is way more about sex only. I think jealousy is a nice example of how you can practice jealousy in the tantric way. It's about okay, let's see what jealousy, when it's there, you know, instead of trying to avoid it, let's embrace it. Let's see if we can open ourselves up to the jealousy that is there. Yeah, Fuyami, how did we deal with this? Yeah, in order to do so, I need to be maybe a bit explicit. Then it's like, okay, when I see my partner having sex with other men or with other women, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Then of course, you know, I can become jealous, especially when, you know, when the mind says that that other guy is a threat, a potential threat for my relationship. And I remember certain occasions where I actually saw that. And then, you know, I allowed myself to open up for this feeling without trying to push it away. And when it became too much, I just asked my wife and this other guy basically to stop, yeah, because it became too much. And we've been practicing this by intervening at the moment when it became too much, over and over again. And at a certain point, it was gone. Yeah. So you know, you need to have a few, let's say, success experiences in your life. Success experience where you actually see your partner having sex with someone else without experiencing it as threatening. Yeah. And then actually it will turn around. Then at a certain point, it will turn around to something, oh, beautiful, you know, to something beautiful, you know. Then you can actually enjoy seeing your partner having a good time with someone else without feeling the threat of, oh, maybe she will choose for him. No. You know that she will choose for you, you know, because that's, you know, as I said, we have this 12-year base of monogamy, you know, so we you know, we will stay together, you know. I don't doubt that. At least that's also what I say to her. So I don't have doubts that she will go away with another man, and that is like the core, the base of our relationship. Yeah. So anything can basically happen, you know, because that base is quite strong. But jealousy, yeah, we had to go through it. Yeah, we had to go through it.
Yeah. So I think it's really good to kind of pinpoint that like opening up a relationship, like you go and do what you do and I go and I do what I do, and the difference with what you did is kind of that you can see what the other person does, that it's inside of some kind of container, and there in the container there are some sort of rules, and you talk about the rules before you open up your relationship. And if you open up, like, well, you, of course, if it works for you, it works for you, that you can do whatever you do there and I can do whatever I do there, but it's completely different way that you did it.
Yeah, as I said, key for Yami was transparency. So also, yeah, and that is key. It's also hard because it's way easier to say, you just whatever you do, you just do whatever you want to do, but don't tell me. Yeah, that's a lot of people do it like that. Yeah, and so there's a lot of secrecy and stuff going on, and I don't know, man, I'm not sure. But doing it fully, openly, transparent, then yeah, and taking responsibility for everything that needs to be felt. Yeah, you know, I think that is, for the long term, is one of the best approaches, or at least in my experience. I shouldn't say it's one of the best approaches. At least it has worked for us. It has worked for us. Yeah, taking it baby steps, also taking baby steps. First, you invite a guy in bed. You know, you do one guy, because usually when you take you know, for a couple, when you take a woman extra in bed, you know, somehow there's more rivalry between women than there is between men. Yeah. So inviting a man into your relationship first is usually the better. Yeah. Because there's a bit of brotherhood that can consist, and you can both serve the woman, you know, together. That's usually a good approach. While, you know, it's a bit more complex when you have two women, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So do you think, well, maybe I will draw this, well, to the conversation that has been quite intensive in Maniphesto networks now, with finding way towards sexual mastery.
Yeah.
And well, what do you think about that? That you have found this, let's say, really special place with your wife, making it work. It works for you, but I haven't seen anyone in my life that it works, that open relationship works.
Oh.
And why you think that's it? That is? Is it so difficult, or is it because of you need to be a certain type of person, or what does it? Why is it so?
Yeah. But that's a complex question for you, man. But I hear you. I have a few other friends who have successfully opened up their relationship. What they have in common is they have all this steady monogamous base in common. Yeah. So that is at least one of the things there. So that might be one of the variables of the success of having like 10 to 12 years of monogamous steady base, and only then starting opening the relationship. And I'm also not saying that this is for everybody. Yeah. And you need to be very careful, I think, from what space you're actually wanting this open relationship. Because a lot of people that I speak to, especially the guys, they want to have an open relationship, they want to be free, they want to fuck around, they want to do whatever they want to do. But you know, the idea of their woman doing something similar, that is super threatening for them. Yeah. So it's like, oh no. So that's too scary. So yeah, so it takes also a bit of courage. And I think you can only, let's say, you can only claim this freedom yourself if you are willingly to allow your partner, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, to allow your partner to experience the similar freedom. Yeah. And that you take responsibility for what that does to you. Yeah. I think that is key. But if you're not willing to face that jealousy, or if you're not willing to face that anxiety that you have, yeah, then you know, that needs to go a little bit hand in hand, I guess. Yeah. And yeah.
So what would you say that there's always something that you lose when you gain something?
Yeah.
That's my opinion. So what have you gained from opening up your relationship, and what have you lost?
That's a good one. First, gain is easy. What I've gained, what we have gained is a sense of freedom in the sexual realm. That there is not, if I would die tomorrow, then at least, you know, some of the sexual fantasies, some of the sexual longings that I had, you know, I've ticked them off, and I'm happy with that. Yeah. My mind is not so full of sex anymore, because I've done a lot of it. Yeah. So that's what I gained. And I could not have done that only with my wife. Yeah. So I'm very happy that I had some great friends, and you know, with whom I could have explored all these sexual things. So that's a big gain. Yeah. Now, what did I lost? What did I lose? I'm not so sure for you, I don't know.
Maybe one thing that comes to my mind, you lose energy to do something else, because I think it's if you do this, if you want to do this, it needs a fucking lot of intensive energy. In that sense, that you have to deal with all the emotions, create the space for it, create the space for your new relationships, and the rules, and thinking about it, and feeling the emotions, and all the things, and that's away from something else. Yeah. But of course, if you just want to do it, then it's no problem. But still, it's you have to dedicate yourself to this.
Yeah, that's it. So I think, of course, it has cost me, what did I lose? Okay, money, time, effort, energy. Of course, this is the stuff, but that's, I don't consider that as a loss. I consider that as an investment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for me, this is like hard work, as you just described. It's hard work, but there was gold at the end, meaning, having this sense of there's still stuff that I would like to do in the sexual realm, but I feel quite free sexually, and there is some confidence there. And a lot of guys that I meet in my practice also, they feel so insecure about the sexuality. And at least by going through all these tantric practices, going to these tantric workshops, at least there is a sense of confidence in my sexuality, and that's a big gain. Yeah.
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 Yeah. That sounds really good, and I think it shows when I'm with you and I have been working with you that kind of you have this different kind of confidence, and it feels good to be around you,
Mm. Mm.
and it kind of like the confidence. It doesn't that something you do. It just kind of resonates out from you,
Yeah.
and uh, and what maybe one thing I would say about this, that because there has been really intensive conversation about what does a sexual mastery look like, that for my take on that is that you have to find your way to
Yeah.
do it yourself, and there are different ways of really different ways of approaching the same thing, and all of those, they don't work with all people, so we have to kind of, you need to have a space where you can explore at least a little bit, and then do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Because this is my story, but I'm not saying that this everybody should do this, because I also know that a lot of people are not. They want in their head, they want to have an open relationship, but what they actually need is going monogamous for 10 years. Yeah. That would be my thought. Yeah. So yeah.
And also one thing is that how much time and effort you want to put onto your sexuality, because being a human, that's only one part of being a human. There's lots of things you want to do. You have to choose. If you
Yeah.
want to do this, then you have to make an effort to do it. If
You're
you want to
totally
do
right.
something else,
Yeah.
then you have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do want to say, Fliami, on this, I think sexuality is super important, because
Yeah.
I mean, it is the source of everything. I mean, sex is, it is everything in that sense. If there's no sex, we're gonna die. So it is essential. But I hear you. It is up to you how much time and effort you wanna put in this. But one thing I realized over the past few years with being active in Tantra is that we are, at least I am, a sexual being, and I want to honor that, and I need to express that as well, and I want to give form and shape to that as well, because it's fun, and we should also make fun. Yeah, I think that's very important. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe I will close with this, that maybe I will write this to the men's group when I'm ready. But I have been thinking about this a lot. That dealing with the sexuality and growing as a man, it's kind of like sexuality is an archetype in that sense, like anger is an archetype. That it's just a fact of the life that we are all sexual beings. That we all have anger in ourselves, and if we don't have a relationship with that, whatever it looks like, it will sabotage our life. We have to find some sort of mastery, and how do we do it? That's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
But it's like a fact.
Yeah. I totally agree, man. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Haya. This was an really good conversation, and we covered all the topics, and it was nice talking to you and connect and maybe and learn from you more about how you view these things. So last question, what's next for you? Where are you going?
Where am I going? Yeah, so I've been doing men's work, doing my basic trainings, doing my normal Mr. Nice Guy work over the past 6-7 years. So a month ago, I launched my first facilitator training, where I basically teach the participants how to be relaxed in front of a group, how to hold space for a group, how to give a proper presentation, and that's where I wanna go to. Yeah, so to support people to basically do the work that I've been doing over the past 7 years. Being able to deliver a message in front of a group, being able to deliver, let's say, an engaging exercise, and that kind of things. Give a proper presentation from your authentic self instead of trying to make yourself bigger or smaller than who you truly are. Yeah, so that is what I feel where my energy is being drawn to at the moment, to create more of those spaces where I can actually support people to become better facilitators, better presenters. So that's my next step. And of course there's more on the horizon, so to speak. Later this year I also want to so this is like the facilitator training, and the other thing that I'm going to kick off later this year is going to be, I call it the Pathfinder project. This is a half-year program for men that want to start engaging in finding and working and defining their life purpose, and to start create momentum in giving their gift to the world. And this is also something that I'm looking forward to, where the stuff that I've been working on over the past 5-6 years has more to do with shedding off, let's say, your nice guyism and creating something next to it, like a more healthy form of masculinity. But I think the next step is basically, okay, now you have found this balance. Then for men, I think it is time to give your gift to the world, and to put yourself out there and to show truly who you are, and bring it what you have to bring now, and to support guys in that process. That's next. That's where I wanna focus on the coming few years, in combination with that facilitating part.
Good, and I will share the links for Hajee's work into this podcast.
Sure, cool. Awesome, Yami.
So thank you, Hajee, and I will see you someday.
Someday. Thanks, Yami, for having me. It was a pleasure, man. Good talking to you. Awesome.
You too.
Okay, ciao, ciao.
Good.